This episode is sponsored by Able Now, tax advantage savings accounts for eligible individuals with disabilities. If you're a parent, you know how important it is to plan for your child's future. But if your child has a disability, saving money can feel complicated, especially when you're trying to protect their eligibility for certain benefits like Medicaid. That's where Able Now comes in. Able Now accounts offer a tax-advantaged way to save for your child's future needs without jeopardizing eligibility for those critical disability services and supports. Funds in your account can be used for a wide range of expenses, everything from education to healthcare, housing, transportation, and even basic living expenses. Able Now accounts are available to qualified individuals in all 50 states. Are you eligible? Visit ablenow.com to learn how you can start saving today and join thousands of families using Able Now to secure a brighter future for their loved ones. I'm Debbie Reber, and welcome to Tilt Parenting, a podcast featuring interviews and conversations aimed at inspiring, informing, and supporting parents raising differently wired kids. And this is a Parent Lean-In episode, a bite-sized show where I answer a single listener question, sometimes on my own, sometimes with a coach from the Differently Wired Club, and sometimes with an author or expert who's become one of my go-to resources. Think one relatable parent question followed by practical strategies or reframes that can support you in your parenting world. To submit a question for a future Parent Lean-In show, go to tiltparenting.com/lean-in. That's tiltparenting.com/LEANIN. And with that, here's today's episode. Hey everyone, joining me for today's Parent Lean-In episode, I have educator and friend of the pod, Zach Morris of Alive at Learn. And Zach specializes in working with parents and young adults who are navigating the complex dynamics of neurodivergent experience. He is uniquely equipped to serve families with profiles of autism, especially PDA, families who are navigating trauma, and families who are needing to heal and repair relationships. He is also a parent coach in my Differently Wired Club. So hello, Zach, and thank you for being here.
Hi, Debbie. Thanks for having me as always.
Of course. Let's get into it. And I'm just going to say as a preface before I read this, Ned Johnson, Ned, if you're listening to this, my listeners love you as much as I do. So you come up in a lot of questions, which means people are really thinking about what you're putting out there. So thank you for that. So let's get to it. The listener wrote in, thanks to you and Ned Johnson, we have been much more aware of how we can support motivation and refrain from demotivating our teen. These are for behaviors or actions we would like to see them take. What about behaviors or actions or motivations that we are not okay with, like vaping? So the context for this is a 17-year-old ADHD and executive function challenges. And I just love this question so much. I think it is so good and it's tricky. 17 is an interesting age because you're almost 18, and vaping it's not super safe, but it's not drugs, but it could, there's a lot going on here. So I had lots of thoughts, and I'll start with this one. First of all, going back to the age of 17, at 17, we really can't prevent our kids from doing something that we don't want them to do. I mean, we can try, and maybe actually we can prevent them with extreme measures, but the ways in which we're going to prevent them from doing something that they want to do are not going to necessarily be ways that build connection and trust, which is really the most important thing when you are parenting a 17-year-old, especially a 17-year-old who has ADHD, which means the impulse control is going to be not as strong. The desire to take risks is going to be higher. So that trust and connection is so important. And there are two things. I was researching Jess Leahy's work in getting ready for this question. And she wrote a wonderful book, The Addiction Inoculation. I'll have a link in the show notes to our conversation about that and to her book. But two things she says is that number one, kids who are more controlled by their parents lie to their parents more. Makes sense. I was like, yep, that was me. Like I had very controlling parents and I lied about everything when I was 17. Well, everything that I wasn't supposed to be doing, which was a lot of things that I was doing. The second thing that Jess said is that monitoring kids too much can undermine their trust. So I wanted to share those two thoughts because, again, the most important thing with a child who is about to be 18, who we're really trying to raise so that when they aren't living at home, when they are kind of out in the world, they know how to make decisions that are healthy, that they know themselves well enough, that they trust themselves, and that they trust us to come to us with things that are big or scary or difficult. So focusing on that connection is really important. And so when it comes to, what we're doing here, what are we doing here with our kids who are vaping? Jessica Leahy would say that the communication should really be about educating our kids, right? These are my concerns. This is what the science says, right? If we're talking about, I know this question's about vaping, but if we're talking about drinking or we're talking about marijuana use, I just recorded a great conversation about drug use in kids. We want to give them the real information. This is what these things do to a developing brain. This is what can happen. These are my concerns. These are the things that I'm worried about. Present that information to our kids. And, going back to one of Ned Johnson's quotes that I say all the time, I trust you to make your own decisions and to learn from your mistakes. Because ultimately, we want our kids to know we trust you. And this is what I'm concerned about. And we can't control a 17-year-old, what they're going to be doing out in the world. So I just want to throw that out there. One other thing I want to add, and then I am going to hand it over to you, Zach. I'm super curious to hear your thoughts on this. But legality is another piece of this. So with vaping, I was researching, you're supposed to be 21 to vape. To purchase tobacco products in the United States, you have to be 21. So just like, as Jess Leahy would say, with alcohol or with marijuana use or anything else, if something's illegal, that's a whole other conversation. In our house, we follow the law, right? It's not our own moral things. It's illegal. And this is a problem. So you can always kind of fall back on that too. So again, you can have some rules in your house around this idea that we don't do things that are illegal in our house. And that's where you kind of draw the line, while still kind of sharing all the other concerns. But again, kind of zooming out and remembering what we're really doing here, which is raising kids who are going to ultimately make good decisions for their well-being, for their health, for their safety as they grow and launch. We have to start doing that stuff while they're living under our roof. Because if we don't, they go out into the world, it's just going to be a lot, and they're not going to understand how to kind of navigate those decisions and thinking about things. So I just talked a lot. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll hear Zach's response to this question.
With every passing year, I'm more invested in making meaningful changes in our lifestyle, choosing products that are more sustainable, healthier, and better for the environment. You guys know that I believe that small shifts can have a big impact when it comes to parenting tweaks. I see switching to better quality cleaning products as a different kind of small shift that can also make a big difference for our family's well-being. That's why I love Branch Basics. Their premium starter kit makes it so easy to create a healthier, toxin-free home with one simple plant and mineral-based concentrate that works for everything from pots and pans to counters and laundry. One powerful concentrate. I'm so happy I don't have to have a random potpourri of cleaning products under my sink for different purposes anymore. Branch Basics makes keeping a healthy, toxin-free home so easy. Just fill your bottle with water, add the concentrate to the soap line, give it a shake, and you're ready to go. Branch Basics plant and mineral-based formula is biodegradable, human-safe, and perfect for families, especially those with pets or children, or if family members have eczema, allergies, or asthma. And their refill model makes it easy to maintain a clean, healthy home year-round. Branch Basics can help you kick off the new year with a healthier home and a fresh routine. Right now, our listeners get 15% off their entire order by using code TILT at branchbasics.com. That's 15% off your order at branchbasics.com with promo code TILT. Make 2025 your cleanest, healthiest year yet with Branch Basics. Winter can be tough for so many reasons, and I'm not just talking about static hair that can't be tamed and shocking my cat every time I touch him after walking across the carpet in my socks. There's dry air, stuffy noses, itchy skin, and those persistent coughs and congestion. I know there are endless products out there that claim to help, but I like to stick with trusted, reliable solutions that are simple yet effective. For me, that's Vicks. And I gotta say, there's something so nostalgic about the scent of Vicks. It instantly takes me back to the comfort I felt as a kid when my mom rubbed Vicks on my chest to help me clear out when I had a cough. Vicks is the only humidifier brand that combines a cough suppressant, soothing menthol vapors, and hydrating mist to provide powerful relief from common winter discomforts like dry air, congestion, and stuffy noses. Pairing Vicks VapoPads with their humidifiers enhances that relief with the cooling sensation of menthol, while the added moisture helps soothe and ease congestion. If winter air is tough on your family, Vicks humidifiers can make a real difference. Find the Vicks Cool Relief along with VapoSteam in a variety of VapoPads on Amazon. There's a special offer on Amazon on the Vicks Cool Relief Humidifier where you can get 20% off your purchase. Just go to Amazon.com and search Vicks VUL 600 Cool Relief Humidifier. It has a blue tank with white in the center. Be sure to click the coupon to get the discount. You'll need this for wintertime comfort. I've come to genuinely love chilly weather, but those gray skies, cold rain, slush puddles, and shorter dark winter days can still feel a bit heavy, and I'm not above giving myself a boost by treating myself to a little cozy luxury, and in a way that doesn't break the bank. That's where Quince comes in. Quince lets you indulge in everyday luxury at prices that are actually affordable, like their classic Mongolian cashmere sweater. Starting at just $50, these soft and timeless sweaters are a staple for anyone's wardrobe. I recently got the cashmere boxy crewneck version in a gorgeous heather gray, and it is quite literally the softest thing in my wardrobe. And Quince doesn't just have sweaters. You can also find other high-quality luxe products like Italian leather handbags, washable silk skirts, European linen sheet sets. Even better is that Quince prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they partner directly with top factories, cutting out the middleman and passing the savings on to you. Plus, Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And, of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/tilt for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/tilt to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/tilt.
All right, Zach, I would love to hear your thoughts on this question, whether you start responding to what I just unloaded or what came up for you when you first heard this question.
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think you hit a lot of things. I'm going to kind of touch on a little bit as well, and I think, one of those things being is that you're kind of talking about, especially at this age and stage, like being our kids' consultant, where like this is the time where, like I can't be too attached about what you're going to do or not do because we're just out of that sort of compliance dynamic, right? And this is the time to, like you said, provide information, provide our perspective if they're open to hearing it, right? This kind of gets into that land of sort of consent too. Like, are they even, open to like hearing these things from you or not, right? Because if they're not, that, like you said, that might just be compromising relationship, just continuing to try to have that conversation, right? So from a broad perspective, right, I think we are talking about, if we're not oriented from a sort of a compliance place, right, not being sort of actually about getting them to stop, but it being more about connection, orienting to connection, then we can look at, what can we connect around this? Like, because collaboration is going to come from connection. So if we're hoping for any sort of collaboration in this, right, I think it really is going to sit on that platform of connection. And so, are they also hearing that it makes sense they're exploring with substances? This is super normal for a 17-year-old, right, with ADHD, right? Like, and so if we also think about accessing maybe my learning brain at some point to hear some of the information and synthesize that and analyze that and all of those things, like what opens me up to my learning brain, right? It's probably feeling connected, feeling understood in some way, right? Feeling safe. And so I think a lot of that is going to come from actually hearing like, this kind of makes sense actually that you're experimenting with some things and, makes sense that you're feeling drawn to do something that feels good when you do it. Like is that how they're experiencing it? Does it feel good when they do this? Can we acknowledge that, like, well, of course you're drawn to wanting to do something that feels good, like, and can we kind of be in some of that space so that there's maybe also openness to explore the other parts as well, like you said, where it's like totally feels great, feels awesome. And there's also some of this other information out there about like, long-term effects. Would you be open? Can I share that with you? Right. And so I think it's such a balance of some of that, right? Like as I try to introduce you and expose you to things that are outside of what you're thinking about and what you're oriented to, am I also being with you in what's real for you and what's true for you and what's already happening for you, right? So I think it's sort of just a shift of our objective a little bit, right? So I think if our objective is to get you to stop vaping, I think that's where we're gonna hit, a lot of tension and conflicts. I think if we can orient our objective to, maybe my objective is to provide you with as much objective information as I can find about this. Maybe my objective is to understand what your experience with this is and really get a better understanding of what this is like for you, right? Like maybe my objective is going to be something different that we actually feel like we can get more of a foothold with, more momentum with. And maybe that opens up to just way more conversation, right? And that's ultimately what we're looking for, really, is just more conversation, more connection around this, more back and forth, right? I think if I was, this is like really the first thing that came up for me. And even though I'm only getting to mentioning it now, is this really made me think about Marshall Rosenberg's work in nonviolent communication. And I know I've talked about this like so much on the podcast before and things like that. And people are always hearing me talk about this. But I think it gives such a clear roadmap for navigating conflicts, and especially navigating like my internal conflict of watching somebody do something that's hard for me to watch and that I don't feel okay with, right? And so I think looking at nonviolent communication practices can really help us get clear on like, what am I experiencing? What are my needs? What are my boundaries? What are my requests, right? So that I can get clear on what I want to communicate, what I want to do about this, right? Some of these communications just might be what our kiddo can expect from us. Mm-hmm. Maybe what we're just saying is like also that, just if I find them in the house, I just want you to know, like, I am going to throw them away. Like, just like not trying to control you. I'm just saying like, it's really hard for me to watch. And, it just, whatever the thing is, right? Like that's not wrong or bad if that's something, but we can also be clear about that. Right. And, or, maybe there's other things we're trying to, again, get access to connecting around. Maybe we can get connection around the idea of shared value of not doing this around younger sibling. Right. Like, so what can we get connection around so that we can get closer to collaboration? And that is again, such a hard journey for us as parents, because we are going to be watching things that are hard to watch. We are going to be hearing things that are hard to hear. But kind of to your point, that's where we find ourselves with our 17-year-olds. And I think when we can pursue connection, we get a lot more access to also being received about the things we might know or the things we might have to offer or, the requests that we might have.
So good. I have like 3 things I want to circle back on. First of all, I love what you said at the end about I might throw them away. Like I'm just, like when you said that, it made me kind of really think about how important it is that we, again, with the 17-year-old, that we are showing up authentically to what's going on, that we are not walking on eggshells. We are not trying to manipulate for an agenda. We're showing up authentically. I think that also just builds trust. So I really appreciate that. And the reminder of nonviolent communication. And that also reminds me, I want to do a whole episode on that. I know we talked about it extensively on one episode, and I'll put links in the show notes for that, but it's such a great tool. The 2 other things that I wanted to bring up stemming from what you said is this idea of understanding the why behind the behavior. So I just interviewed Brenda Zane for the show. By the time this episode comes out, I think that conversation will have been released. She runs a community called Hope Stream Community, and she has a now, her son is in his late 20s, but he struggled with drug use and abuse and was in and out of rehab as a young person, and has a really kind of an incredible story. And what she talked about is the importance of leaning into, first of all, the discomfort that's going on and trying to find out what need is actually being met, that vape pen or whatever is actually filling, because that is what we want to better understand. the behavior is maybe it's a need to connect and belong because all the friends are doing it. Maybe it's a stress reliever. So there are more coping skills needed. So using that as an invitation to really try to understand what's going on beneath the surface. And then the last thing I wanted to touch upon that I love so much is when you said, what is the objective? What is your objective for engaging? Is it to get them to stop? Is it to deepen the connection? I think, and I talk a lot about intentionality, but I think being super clear, what is my end goal here, is so important to guide any kind of conversation you have, or conversations, or understanding how to kind of navigate a conflict like this. Because what we don't want to do is have something like this create more of a divide or deepen conflict or, build more mistrust. That is the exact opposite of what we want to be doing with the 17-year-old. So many great points. Anything before we wrap up that you want to add, Zach, or?
Yeah, just one last thing, because something I was thinking about too, and I think about this for myself a lot of times, right? But I'm just kind of pulling from that language in the question too about it, things we're not okay with as parents, right? And I wanted to sort of invite parents to think about like what that means for me. Like, what does it mean for me that I'm not okay with this? Does that mean I'm going to try and talk to my kiddo every day about this because I'm not okay with it? Does it mean I actually want to work with a therapist to reconcile this feeling of not okay? Does it mean that I'm going to, again, be communicating some boundaries that I have, with my child? And so I think just getting clear on kind of that abstract idea of it like not being okay and just trying to explore that in a little bit more concrete terms of like, and what does that mean for me? I think that helps us maybe orient to a little bit more direction around like what's aligned with my core values. Because again, based on what I'm experiencing with my child or what the dynamic's been like, it might not align for me to be like, oh, this means I'm going to try to have this conversation every day with them, right? But that might be what I've been kind of doing. And I might not realize until I kind of put it in those terms. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's not what I want this not being okay to mean for me or look like. I want it to more look like this, or I want it to more look like this. And that helps me a lot of times get clear on what does this mean? What does this look like now?
So good. So good. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Such a good question. Obviously, we had a lot to say about it. So I so appreciate you sending that in. Make sure you listen to the episode with Brenda Zane. Again, link in the show notes here. And thank you, Zach, for joining me to talk through this one.
Thanks, Debbie.
You've been listening to the Tilt Parenting Podcast. To learn more about the resources mentioned in this Parent Lean In episode, go to the extensive show notes page on tiltparenting.com. To submit a question for a future episode, just go to tiltparenting.com/leanin. That's tiltparenting.com/LEANIN. If you're looking for personal support from me and connection with the phenomenal community of parents raising neurodivergent kids, join us in the recently rebooted Differently Wired Club. The new Differently Wired Club can help you cultivate the positive shifts you're hoping for. Go to tiltparenting.com/club to learn more. The Tilt Parenting Podcast is hosted by me, Debbie Reber, author of Differently Wired and the founder of Tilt Parenting. To support this show, please join my Patreon campaign where you can set up a small monthly contribution. Just go to patreon.com/tiltparenting to learn more. If you want to follow Tilt on social media, go to @tiltparenting on Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps this show stay visible so others can find it more easily. And that's all for this week. Stay safe, stay well, and take good care. And for more information about any of the parenting resources Tilt offers, visit tiltparenting.com.